you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money Talk.
Here's what happens when you advertise on KBLA Talk 1580.
3, possibly 4 weeks ago, I heard an advertisement on your radio station from a company called Grid Solar. I would love to have that phone number so I can reach out to them with reference to solar panels being installed on my property.
Our listeners are aware and engaged, but more than that, they are loyal. When they hear empowering messages that uplift their community and help them live better lives, they respond. No medium reaches this coveted black audience like KBLA Talk 1580. So, hit us up today at smb@kbla1580.com and let us help you connect with our loyal listeners. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Money to bud.
The might is touch.
Touch, 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 touch. Touch, 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 touch.
You say you're going through changes. Every day it seems your life is up and down. And you say that you're looking for an answer. Everywhere you look it seems it can't be found. Like searching, trying to find a rainbow. No one's ever found the treasure's told to be. But if you're looking for a lover, everything you need you can find right here in me. I've got the Midas touch. Everything I touch turns to gold. Oh, sugar. I've got the Midas touch. Baby, let me touch your body and your soul. Now you've been trying.
One of my favorite songs, Midas Touch. I love that track. But this is a talk show, so I got to get moving. In this hour, as promised, 2 conversations on the B side of this hour, on this Indigenous Peoples Day, a conversation with North Dakota Native activist Ruth Buffalo. We'll do that on the back side of this hour. But we commence this hour, as promised, with our friend and brother, Greg Hekamovich. It is the story of America's first black woman novelist. The Life and Times of Hannah Crafts, the true story of the bondman's narrative, is his book. It is out tomorrow in paperback. Greg, good to have you back on this program. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much, Tavis, for having me. I want to wish everyone a respectful Indigenous Peoples Day.
No, we appreciate that, and I'm delighted again to have you speak to this particular audience. For those who did not catch wind of this book when it came out initially, in hardcover and did remarkably well. As you probably know, I've written a few books over the course of my career, so I know something what it feels like when they say the book is done so well, we're going to put it out in paperback. Every author wants to hear that the book is done well enough that we are now going to put it out in paper. Such is the case for our guest, Greg Hekamovich, and I'm excited for him. But for those who missed you on this program the first time around when the book came out in hardcover, tell us about the Life and Times of Hannah Crafts.
Oh, thank you so much. And Hannah Crafts was America's first black woman novelist. And against all odds, a New York Times best-selling writer, when in 2002, the renowned historian Henry Louis Gates Jr. authenticated and published her manuscript under its original title, The Bondwoman's Narrative. It became a New York Times bestseller. So this, the success of my book is all about the just power and brilliance of this forgotten novel that Dr. Gates helped recover. Just for your readers, Hannah Bond was, this is what my research discovered, Hannah Crafts was born as Hannah Bond on the plantation of Lewis Bond in Indian Woods, North Carolina, a child of rape by a white father, the planter Lewis Bond, and a mixed-race mother called Hannah Sr. She was orphaned until the age of 10 and brought up to be a house servant. But what was amazing is she stole literacy because she was serving female college students in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. And what my research uncovered is who these students were and how she was learning a curriculum by borrowing the learning that those college students were doing. She started writing this novel while she was enslaved, and she escaped with this novel underway north through the Underground Railroad up to New York and eventually settled in Timbuktu, New Jersey. She is one of the most amazing writers we have in the American literary tradition, and it's just been an honor for me to work so closely with Dr. Yates and other scholars to help unearth her story.
You top-lined it, and I appreciate that. Given that our time is limited today, but I got a bit more time for you to unpack and to share more about the way she stole her learnings.
Certainly. So between 1852 and 1856, Hannah Bond was serving on the in the plantation house of the Wheeler family in Murfreesboro. What my research uncovered is there are dormitory buildings on that property that white college women who were attending the university that was right across the street were boarding in through a long time in the oral history and oral community of that area, and through the records that were saved by those students, I was able to discover that elements of the novel were building off of the very education that the students were getting on that property. So we have this insight, right, that we have Frederick Douglass telling how he stole literacy. We have this other powerful story in the African-American tradition behind this novel, The Bond Woman's Narrative.
When we come forward, it is one thing, Greg, for one in slavery to steal literacy, to steal these learnings. It is quite another, once one becomes literate, to then become a novelist. That's the part of the story that I find fascinating when you talk about Hannah Crafts as the first black woman novelist in this country. Again, it's one thing to get literate, and that's a beautiful thing, but it's another thing to become so literate that you become a novelist. And in her case, once again, the first black woman novelist. I want to unpack that part with Greg Akimovich when we come forward. The book is called The Life and Times of Hannah Crafts, the true story of the bond woman's narrative. You're listening to Greg, and I'm glad about it, right now on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Tavis Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dominique DePrima from the show First Things First, weekday mornings from 6 to 9. Join me tomorrow with City Council candidate for the 14th District, Isabel Jurado, plus trending topics and your phone calls, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jeff Davis. I believe my daughter should inherit something, but not the role and responsibility of burying me. That's why I have a pre-need burial insurance plan through Harrison Ross Mortuary. Their plan offers me 4 payment options. 1, pay in advance, or pay over 3, 5, or 10-year time periods to keep the payments affordable. Contact the professionals today at Harrison Ross Mortuary. We can be reached at area code 310-704-4901. That's 310-704-4901. And ask for me, Jeff Davis. Thank you.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks VapoStick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors. Use as directed. VapoStick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline Nasal Spray?
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Greg Yakubovich is the author of the book, The Life and Times of Hannah Crafts, the true story of the bondwoman's narrative. We are talking about America's first black woman novelist, and I'm pleased to have Greg back on this program. Greg, before I push ahead and talk about the turn or the chance, the risk that one takes, not just becoming literate, but indeed trying to write your own book and become a novelist, tell me more specifically, more expressly about the risk. The various risks that she took stealing that learning how to read. We all know enough of history to know that it was a dangerous thing in slavery to get caught learning how to read, to get caught educating oneself. Tell me more about the risk that she took.
So she took an extraordinary risk, especially in putting pen to paper to tell her own autobiographical story. So when she began writing this novel, it was very dangerous because the novel is questioning and challenging the institution of slavery while she's under that regime. Extraordinary risk in doing that. What we have in the historical record is the paper she was using matches precisely the paper that the Wheeler family, the people who owned her, the paper they had in the household. The way paper was created, in the period, there's a special watermark that you can identify forensically. She was using paper from that household. So an extraordinary risk. Now, on the other side, I do want to say, literacy, when an enslaved person achieved literacy, the enslavers sometimes use that to their own benefit. And what the Wheelers were doing, as they sometimes used her, she describes it in an autobiographical novel as taking dictation. So there were laws against it. You could be punished. But in some cases, literacy among enslaved people, especially high-achieving literacy, was in fact enslaved itself.
Mm-hmm. Share with me what the research informed you about regarding her turn to become a writer. Again, we know that she became literate, but tell me more about how this became her muse, how she became a writer.
I love it. I start the book with this amazing quote. Hilary Mantel, famous novelist, who, when she read Hannah Craft's best-selling biography, said, autobiographies display the triumph of experiences, but novels are acts of hope. And what Hannah Bond's experience, she never accepted the name and took the name Hannah Craft. Her experience in this household, she was attending on a group of young women who were running a literary magazine out of the house where she tended them. She saw their exercises. She saw the joy and pleasure of writing creatively, and she decided that was something else that shouldn't be kept from her. And when she started writing her novel, she wanted to take the experience of other enslaved people in her world and create a literary art out of it. The history of slave narratives was the idea that you can't do that you have to write only a factual story that can be proven by the white abolitionists who are controlling the story that you're telling. She wrote outside of that field. She wrote out of the pleasure that any human being has to the access of creativity and developing creative art out of one's own experience.
Tell us now more about the actual novel, Greg.
Certainly. So the novel is this amazing autobiographical story of her life, of a young enslaved girl who is separated from her mother, who is separated from her family. And in the novel, she ends up telling the story of her own sexual abuse. She writes it in a coded way. Another reason to write a novel was you didn't have trauma memoirs at the period. You couldn't talk about rape in the same ways you could potentially today. So this is coded in the autobiographical way that she tells her story. In the story, she triumphs over that. The story doesn't emphasize this power of the white enslavers. It emphasizes the success of the autobiographical writer escaping a regime that is trying to control her body. And I'll just say, she was forced to go to blackface minstrels. We know this in the historical record. When she writes this novel, show-stopping scene, she has her enslavers blacken their face without knowing it, and then flips the script on the very plays she was forced to watch that the Wheelers made her go to. This is creative art. This is what Toni Morrison's doing. This is what Jesmyn Ward's doing. She is on the ground floor pointing our way to capital L literature.
How do you read or see her novel as an act of hope?
She is imagining an escape for herself psychologically. She can control the sexual abuse she's gone through and preserve her selfhood. So the heroine of the book is never sexually molested. There's other characters that tell that story, but her own integrity as a human being isn't touched by that violence. The novel tells the triumph of that story, and it does it through literary art. And she started writing it, imagining what her life could be like. She finished it writing by claiming that life that she could imagine. The hope that novels can provide is what she experienced in beginning to write it, and then the life she created after.
As you well know, of course, those who were enslaved then had no say-so in who owned them or where they were, in fact, enslaved. You've given us the backstory about Hannah Crafts and where she was and who owned her, et cetera, et cetera. My question is whether or not you think that this story, I mean the whole thing, might not have happened if she hadn't been with the Wheelers.
I believe that her circumstances put within her reach. It took extraordinary courage. It took extraordinary talent, but her circumstances provided her opportunities. If she was born in different circumstances, it would have been really, really hard for her to find a way to do what she did.
Tell me more about her. We talked about her as a writer. Tell me more about her as a person, more about her family. Give me a broader frame here.
Yeah, so she is born into a family of enslaved people who have been sexually assaulted by their white enslavers for generations. So her skin is very light, and this provides her a little more freedom, right? And also, this is something Dr. Gates noted, there's a type of classism in her own reaction to other enslaved people. So, you know, there's just this really human story that is related to who she is as a person. Now, I want to say this. People within her family that are connected pass for white later because of their light skin. Hannah Bond / Hannah Crafts did not. She eventually escaped to New Jersey, married a very successful marriage with an important AME preacher, and had a full life in Burlington, New Jersey, in that community. And what she did in that community is she took her skills and arts as a literary artist and turned them to teaching, to help in teaching an all-black school, to give the gifts of literacy, the hope of her own creative genius to other people.
To quote that great philosopher Bobby Brown, it was their prerogative. It was their prerogative to choose to pass if they wanted to. But to your point, Hannah Bond did not choose to pass, went on to marry, as you mentioned, an AME minister, and the rest is history, as they say. Tell me more about what you learned about why she made that decision not to try to pass, even though she could have, given the color of her skin, while other members of her family decided to pass.
I think when she escaped, she found love and community in the African-American community. What she had seen in the white community, her father was likely her white enslaver, Louis Bond, a man who'd never even accepted his responsibility as a father to her. She was trafficked to a nephew of that white man. All she saw was the cruelty and evil of these white people. She found her success, her love, her harmony in the world of other black communities after her escape.
Yep. I'm always fascinated by stories like these, and by these, I mean stories that I would broadly define as lost and found. These amazing pieces of history that are lost for whatever reasons and over time eventually found. Tell me more about the lost and found nature of this particular work that both you and Skip Gates have sunk your teeth into.
Yeah, I think there's more out there. There is a concerted effort to silence African-American history, right?
Yep.
For 150 years. The records are there. They're hard. The piecing together her particular story is very difficult because government records, archival records, libraries, everything is still breaking up that family. But the power, the transcendent power of those communities, the love of those communities, the genius, the artistic genius of this woman was maintained. And it wasn't maintained by me. It was maintained by a leading African-American librarian who saw the value. Dorothy Porter Wesley saw this manuscript, bought it from Emily Driscoll in 1948. She was a white manuscript dealer. Nobody else was interested in 1948 in the narrative work of black people. Dorothy Porter Wesley was, and she cherished that manuscript. And she was friends with Dr. Gates. At her passing, Dr. Gates had a conversation with Dorothy Porter Wesley, was tipped off to the presence of this manuscript. It came to him, and then he did her just amazing work to authenticate it, but it took another long time for me and other scholars to get to the full story.
Yep. I've known Skip Gates for years, and so I was not surprised when Skip jumped on top of this and did what he did to bring this manuscript forward. But I am always fascinated, even when it comes to Skip, by the backstories of the persons who decide to engage in this kind of labor. This is a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of effort to bring these stories to life. So again, I understand Skip's underpinnings, but tell me more about why Greg Hekimovich was fascinated and turned on by the story and chose to spend all this time bringing this thing to the light.
Yeah, it's really about the power of history. As a human being, and I'm growing up, I'm in eastern North Carolina, and I see names on signs. If I actually discover who are those people on those signs, I start to know the spirit that's moving in the community. Now, the community that is our past is powerfully shaping our current moment for both black people and white people. And for me, as somebody who lived in these communities I'm writing about, it was impossible for me not to be completely passionate about what I saw as this moving spirit that Gates had brought to my attention, that Dorothy Porter Wesley had preserved. Yeah. And there was no way I could think of nothing more interesting or important that I could devote my time to. My very first book is about riddles in 19th century British literature. I could have cornered the market on being the guy who you go to talk about riddles in 19th century British literature. That's not interesting to me. Yeah. What's interesting to me is the world I'm living in. I did this over 20 years with the students, drawing them in, letting them know that we are in these communities, and I couldn't have done it without the work of people living in the community, not just in the archive, but in the community. And one of the very important, I won't take the time of your listeners, but there are very specific people I'm crediting throughout this biography because they're the ones who preserve these stories.
Your passion always comes through in our various conversations, and yet I'm still curious about how, given the story you've just shared, the research has affected you personally.
It's given me a reason to write. It's given me awareness and a mission as a professor, right? It's given me meaning. It's just it. I am a part of this history, right? And to be able to, whatever small technical skills I have as a writer and as a researcher, to put that focus on a place where certainly white people weren't putting the focus, right? I mean, and I could have done this, and this is, again, I won't cite all of the people, but there's an extraordinary list of African-American women historians who, over these 20 years, I've become friends with, who have taught me how to do this work. And this sort of work is what we should all be doing. I'll just end with this. Black literature is not just for black people. Henry Louis Gates taught me that. When I was doing this work, and it was drawing some attention and praise, I wrote Dr. Gates and said, I feel bad because, I'm a white person who's doing this work, and now it's getting credited, and that just seems racist. And he told me it's the exact opposite story, Greg. The best thing in the world is this is literature with a capital L. Every person is open to it. And the fact that you're white and you're trained in a different field is just it honors what he has spent his career developing. Yeah. That this history of black literature is not cordoned off somewhere. All history, all literature is the shared project of Americans.
No. That's great advice. I'm glad Skip shared that with you. Here's my exit question in the 90 seconds I have left. What is the value in real time? What is the value of revisiting and or knowing the story of Hannah Crafts in this moment?
What shaped her region, what shaped American history, and really the biography looks very closely at the places she lived. The landscape, the institutions, the churches, the communities that are still present in those areas are shaped by the story that she is creatively engaging when she writes this amazing piece of foundational literature, American literature. We can only be nourished by going back and reading deeply and studying her work, just as we do Mark Twain's work, just as we do any American writers. And that's a gift to us. It's a gift that important African-American librarians, scholars, historians carry forward. I'm in the mix because I'm doing some of this work too, and that's okay. This is a gift to all of us, and it comes not from me, not from anybody, but together it's our history.
This book was the winner of the 2024 Los Angeles Times Book Award for Biography and selected by the Washington Post as one of the 10 best books of last year. The book comes out tomorrow in paperback. It is called The Life and Times of Hannah Crafts, the true story of the bondwoman's narrative. The author and the researcher behind this amazing text is Greg Hakamovich, who I'm honored to have had on this program. Greg, congrats on the paperback release tomorrow. Thanks again for sharing your insights about this first black woman novelist.
Thank you so much, Tavis.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Why does Tavis say, when we come forward?
Because he's not going back.
And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from VIN News. In observance of Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day, most banks and 90 central federal offices will be closed. This includes all Wells Fargo and Bank of America locations. However, Chase branches will be open. And Senator Ted Cruz of Texas and his Democratic challenger Colin Allred, who is black, will debate this week. The 2 Senate candidates will face off on Tuesday in Dallas. The debate will be held at the WFAA TV studios and will air statewide. Amazon is asking its workers to come back to the office full-time beginning this January. In a new memo, CEO Andy Jassy said the tech giant is going back to pre-pandemic norms. And Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial will begin next spring. A New York judge set the trial start date for May 5th. The music and business mogul is facing numerous federal charges and faces up to life in prison if found guilty. Combs will remain in custody while he awaits the start of the trial. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers pitching staff continues to dominate in the postseason. The 9-0 win over the New York Mets Sunday in Game 1 of the National League Championship Series is the Dodgers' third straight shutout in the playoffs. The pitching staff has not given up a run in the playoffs in 33 straight innings. That ties a postseason record set by the Baltimore Orioles in 1966. Game 2 today is an afternoon start. First pitch at 1:08. The Chargers are 3-2 after a 23-16 win at Denver. Former USC star Caleb Williams had his best day as the Chicago Bears starting quarterback. Williams threw for 229 yards and 4 touchdowns in the Bears win over Jacksonville. Congratulations to former Lakers star Michael Cooper. Cooper was inducted Sunday into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Cooper played 9 of his 12 NBA seasons with the Lakers and made the NBA's all-defense team 8 times. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. Around here, we don't believe in victimhood. We believe in raising our voices, amplifying black voices in the climate conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada. Member FDIC.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
It does indeed on this Indigenous Peoples Day. I hope that you are working hard to rid yourself of referring to this as Columbus Day. Since we all know now Columbus ain't discovered nothing. He got here and bumped into somebody. Got here, ran into somebody and acted like he discovered something. And so it is still amazing to me all these years later that I just heard our news report refer to it. We're syndicated, heard across the country, so you may not have heard the news report that I heard in the market that you are in, listening to me right now. But here in L.A., where I'm sitting, we had a news report, and they referred to it. They did both. Happy Columbus Day, Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Well, it can't be both. I know what it is on paper, but it is amazing to me the ways in which, even all these years later, we still just keep lying to the American people. We teach things that are not truthful on the one hand, and on the other hand, as we just discussed with our prior guest, we're trying to make sure that certain truths aren't even taught at all in schools. So we're trying to avoid the truth being told in some circumstances and instances, and in other places and spaces, we just keep telling the same old lies. And so it's just fascinating to me. I digress on that for now. But on this Indigenous Peoples Day, I'm pleased to be joined for a conversation here briefly by Native activist and former North Dakota State Representative Ruth Buffalo. Ruth Buffalo, good to have you on. How are you today?
Hi, Dosha Madzigadad. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
It's good to have you on the program. You probably heard what I had to say a moment ago. Let me just get your opinion on this for starters. How do you process this, that all these years later we're still trying to get people to call this day more accurately what it ought to be called Indigenous Peoples Day, and that America, in many respects, still continues spinning this lie that Columbus discovered something?
Well, I think it's testament to the powers that be who, by design, have tried to wipe us off the face of this planet. So the rhetoric, the efforts, have worked overtime to get it to where it's at today.
Yeah, I wonder whether or not you think the frame. Let me change words. Not the frame, but the lens. Either works, but I wonder whether or not you think the lens through which we see Native peoples today has in any way changed appreciably from the way and the lens that we used to see your people through in this country.
Yes, I think there have been strides in incremental change that has happened. We have more representation, in different avenues through, like the streaming resources, through whether it's Res Dogs or Lily Gladstone or Dallas Goldtooth kind of being more present on a media platform. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. But yes, there have been incremental changes. From moving from how we've been depicted in Hollywood to present day. But the fact that we still are very silent, even though silent in terms of getting justice for our incarcerated relatives, justice for our missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives, is still shows that how much work is needed for parity.
I want to come to that point in a moment here about justice. Somebody said justice is what love looks like in public. Justice is what love looks like in public. We'll come back to that justice frame here in just a second. Two things first. One, since you mentioned Dallas Goldtooth, that's funny. He's our guest today at our third and final hour. We're talking about his new LeBron James project, and we'll talk about Reservation Dogs as well, and the mainstream success of that series on FX. So just funny that you mentioned Dallas. He's our guest today in the third and final hour of our program on this Indigenous Peoples Day. But let me circle back to a couple of things that you said. And I think I want to start with this. Specifically, I'm curious as to how you think politically we have and are handling the issue of the treatment, the maltreatment, as it were, of Native peoples. I mentioned earlier that you are a former North Dakota State Representative. So just in terms of our politics, we'll get back to justice and some other things, but in terms of our politics, how are we doing?
Oh, I think there again, we've made incremental change, and some in those spheres believe that is how that's the norm, incremental change, and that things aren't going to happen overnight, which is understandable, but people are dying, and so it's right in our own backyard, so to speak, in our own country, in our own homelands, and so there is much work that needs to be done. But in terms of politics, being an individual born into a unique political relationship with the United States federal government gives us also a unique status, and so there's a lot at stake, but yes, incremental change in terms of full parity in the political spheres for those of us who are from these original lands that we currently reside on in present-day United States of America.
Yep. How would you, Ruth Buffalo, define that status? There's that word following you here. How would you define that status of your people today?
Well, being the original landowners of these lands, we've overcome a huge amount of horrible federal Indian policy and acts. And so, again, the fact that we're here today is huge, being survivors of what is kind of become like an unpopular term known as genocide, but there's no other way to put it if we're being truthful. We were, by design, basically the intention or the intent was to wipe us off the face of this planet because we were in the way of the natural resources of the land. And so lots to unpack there, but I would say lots of work that needs to be done. Incremental changes have been brought forward, but again, until Leonard Peltier is free, all of this really doesn't mean anything.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to ask about Leonard Peltier as we move through this hour. Trust and believe it's on my list of things I want to get you to share your thoughts about. But that G word you just mentioned, genocide. Let me go there for a second. We obviously in the midst of watching what's happening in the Middle East, and there are those who don't want to use the word genocide to describe what's happening inside of Gaza. But to your point, after all these centuries, there are still people who are resisting using the word genocide to define and to describe what happened to natives in this country. What specifically do you make of that resistance? And I'm asking in part because you've acknowledged there have been incremental changes. I received that. I started out earlier by saying at least people now see on their calendars. I saw it on my iPhone today. Opened my phone up to look at my schedule. It says Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. So at least that phrase, Indigenous Peoples Day, is a part of the narrative. It's now a part of our dialogue, part of our discourse. But we made progress in that regard. And I believe that words matter, that words have meaning. But we've not made any progress, frankly, against the resistance coming from people who don't want to use the G word to define what really happened. How do you read that part, Ruth Buffalo?
Well, I think, there's lots of components there. And the fact that, sort of like a denialism, I guess you can say. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the rhetoric, the messaging, the narrative has been pushed so strongly of not acknowledging, the original peoples of these lands. I guess for good reason, because if there was true acknowledgement and a true coming to terms of the true history of what is present day United States, there would be more to unpack there, and there would be. So I think we're always pushing for accountability and just basic acknowledgement and then action, But so in my humble opinion, as a Hidatsa, Mandan, Apache woman and mom, I am really honored and thankful that you've asked me to even share a few words, because we still have a long ways to go in terms of parity and addressing like gender-based violence and things that run rampant throughout Indian country. But many of us come from matriarchal, matrilineal peoples where it's not uncommon for women to share their stance strongly or be held in high regard. I think overall cultural differences are kind of what brought us where we are today in terms of, looking at the insurmountable high numbers of, unsheltered relatives, unsheltered women who are Native, who are being targeted at alarming rates. In some counties in the United States, Native women are 10 times more likely to die from homicide than any other group. And then the fact that we're still, barely, 1% of the U.S. population, oftentimes we're disregarded and people, because of such a low population size, but people often miss the boat or miss the understanding completely as to why are we 1%? Let's dive deeper there. Let's have a conversation. Let's come to a better place of understanding, as to how and why we got to this point in time.
No, that's a mouthful. I did not want to interrupt her. I want her to get all of that out, because what she's doing is illustrating for us, painting a picture for us of what these present day injustices look like for natives in this country. We'll talk more about that when we come forward. I also, of course, want to get her take on Leonard Peltier and his chances of clemency by outgoing President Joe Biden come January. And I certainly want to take her temperature on, now that she speaks for all natives, but her read of what this election year means for her people and the choices that they have, same choices you and I have, but what's it mean for them? How do they see this? We're talking to Ruth Buffalo on Indigenous Peoples Day on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Tavis Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Ruth Buffalo on this Indigenous Peoples Day. She's a Native activist, former North Dakota State Representative, and I'm just thrilled to have her on as we commemorate and celebrate on this Indigenous Peoples Day. You were talking a moment ago, Ruth, I'm watching my time, it's getting tight on me, but you were talking a moment ago about what some of these injustices look like these days inside your world. Just tell me a bit more about whether or not these various injustices that you've sort of laid out. I guess what I'm asking is whether or not there's progress being made on these issues, or whether or not it's getting worse or sort of a standstill. And I go through this all the time in terms of my own community, the Black community. I have a book out called The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, and it is tragic in some respects to think about what I wrote in this book 20 years ago and where we are 20 years later and what has not really changed, specifically when it comes to issues like, for example, police violence, police brutality. So you gave us this list. Is there anything that allows you to be hopeful? How are you sustaining your hope, if I can put it that way, against all these various injustices that you detailed earlier?
I think our, future generations, they give us hope. Our children, my children give me hope. Just seeing the young people today and their fearlessness and not waiting or asking for permission, because I think not to disregard or diminish in any shape or form, the previous work that's been done, because, I'm super thankful for, as they say, standing on the shoulders of giants,
Sure.
and all of that good work and things, but definitely acknowledging and remember those that have gone before us, who've laid a strong foundation and cleared a path for us. But definitely, I would say our future generations give me hope. I mean, there has been incremental change again. We have different representation and at the federal level, which is good and great. And, a lot of money has gone towards filling in the gap of, deficiencies in Indian country in terms of funding for basic needs, such as adequate health care and access to, or even just public safety being extremely underfunded in Indian country, which is a recipe for disaster and contributes to ongoing genocidal behaviors. So pushing for accountability is important. There have been incremental changes, always room for improvement. Future generations do really give me hope.
When we come forward in our remaining moments with Ruth Buffalo, I want to ask her about this election year and what these options, what these choices look like from her vantage point. And then we'll talk about Leonard Peltier and whether or not Joe Biden might offer him clemency as he leaves the White House. You're listening to Ruth Buffalo on Indigenous Peoples Day on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Standing up for everyday Americans is at the very foundation of who Kamala Harris is. Raised in a middle-class home by a working mother who instilled in her a passion for justice and equality. That's why when Kamala Harris became district attorney, she stood up for our kids, keeping them safe by prosecuting sex offenders. She also pioneered a program to give nonviolent drug offenders a second chance. As president, Kamala Harris will continue the fight for everyday Americans. She's already lowered the cost of your health insurance and medications. Insulin is now capped at $35 for seniors. But there's more to do, because mortgages, rents, groceries, and utility bills are still too high. Harris's plan to fix it? Build more homes to lower prices and make the wealthy and billionaires pay their fair share so we get a break. All her life, Kamala Harris has been standing up for us, and she doesn't plan to stop anytime soon.
I'm Kamala Harris, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Harris for president.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
That morning chill means truck season!
5 more minutes.
No snoozing. Do it all in a Chevy Colorado or Silverado, including the class-leading range of the Silverado EV.
Talking to me?
Work, play, hauling, off-roading, a Chevy truck can take it all.
Okay, I'm up.
Get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 and Colorado pickups when you finance with GM Financial Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 24.5%. Plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available at least in some of the offers. Take new retail delivery by 9/30/24.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
This is Tavis Smiley and Ruth Buffalo for the next 3 minutes in this conversation between now and the top of the hour. I want to close with Leonard Peltier. Let me ask you right quick, though, Ruth Buffalo, how you are seeing, and perhaps others you're talking to, how are you seeing your choices, your options, given these ongoing injustices in this election?
I think, I think two clear options, and so we have to for sure support the option that supports tribal sovereignty first and foremost. And so, I think there's much needed change overall in these processes, but we have to go with the two options that we have. And of course, the one that is going to respect and uphold tribal sovereignty for sure.
And which one is that, as you see it?
How I see it at this point in time, based off of past behaviors and actions, would definitely have to be Kamala Harris.
Okay. Just want to make sure that that I was clear and that the audience was clear on what you were saying. I will give the last 2 minutes to you for those who don't know anything about Leonard Peltier. That would not be most in my audience. I got a really bright audience. We've talked about it before on this program. But your thoughts at this moment, given Leonard Peltier's age and what the chances are of clemency, perhaps, by our outgoing President Joe Biden?
I mean, we hope the chances are great, but, we'll have to see. I know there's been so many groups who have been pushing for Leonard's freedom over decades, and many that have died trying. And so we just have to continue to keep pushing for his freedom, pushing for Leonard Peltier's justice.
Mm-hmm. Just say a quick word about why he's been behind bars all these years.
We believe Leonard Peltier has been behind bars all of these years to make an example out of what happens to someone who stands up against the powers that be. Definitely making a prime example out of him. And so he has been behind bars for the majority of his life. He is a fellow North Dakotan. He is a member of a federally recognized tribe, Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians in North Dakota, and also one of his parents is a member of the Spirit Lake Nation of North Dakota. He's in very poor health, with the hurricane season in Florida. It has also forced the incarcerated relatives to be in more lockdowns than usual. Being an elder in his health status, being in a sedentary state only exacerbates his current health conditions such as diabetes and heart issues. So it's, it's just very, very alarming and disappointing that he has been in there for so long. And really, President Joe Biden is his last hope for freedom. And so we hope that President Joe Biden will do the right thing. We hope President Joe Biden and his current administration, which includes Kamala Harris, Vice President, will do the right thing and free Leonard Peltier.
Leonard Peltier is now 80 years of age and been in that prison cell for decades. Ruth Buffalo, thank you for your work and witness. Good to have you on this program on this particular day, Indigenous Peoples Day. Thank you for the conversation. I deeply appreciate you. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. In observance of Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day, most banks and 90 central federal offices will be closed. This includes all Wells Fargo and Bank of America locations. However, Chase branches will be open. And Senator Ted Cruz of Texas and his Democratic challenger Colin Allred, who is black, will debate this week. The 2 Senate candidates will face off on Tuesday in Dallas. The debate will be held at the WFAA TV studios and will air statewide. Amazon is asking its workers to come back to the office full-time beginning this January. In a new memo, CEO Andy Jassy said the tech giant is going back to pre-pandemic norms. And Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial will begin next spring. A New York judge set the trial start date for May 5th. The music and business mogul is facing numerous federal charges and faces up to life in prison if found guilty. Combs will remain in custody while he awaits the start of the trial. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers pitching staff continues